welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Crafting Journey, and you're watching another episode of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Currently, we are in week 4 of the Alex Murdaugh trial, and it's going to last a little bit longer than we thought. This was supposed to be a 3-week trial. We're in week 4. We thought the prosecution was going to rest today, maybe tomorrow. I don't think that's happening. We're going to talk about why that is. But first, I'm working on my diamond painting today. This is the crafting portion of the show. This is a show designed so crafters have something to listen to while they're doing their crafts. Diamond painting, crochet, watercolors. Last night on my live, I was doing watercolors. I was trying my hand at birthday cakes. This one has like a little background. I wanted to see what a wash background would look like. This one I tried some wet on wet with the flowers. And I went with a totally different design on the cake. But currently, I can't show it to you yet because my sister is blinging it. She's gonna, it's gonna be great. It's for a friend of hers. So let's talk about the Alex Murdaugh trial. Oh my gosh. These are my notes. Let me put them up here so they're out of the way. Get some coffee. Oh my gosh, we were supposed to get snow flurries this morning. Nah, no snow flurries. Nope, not even an inch of snow. But it's snowing all around us, and very, very cold. Oh my God, the feel like temperature this morning was 7 degrees. I'm here in Wichita, Kansas, by the way, which is kind of a vortex. The weather always happens sort of around us and not to us. It's weird. It's really weird. Okay, so we start the morning off with the judge talking about his ruling regarding, this goes back to the day before when Maggie's sister was on the stand and she was starting to talk about the roadside shooting. And the judge had ruled in favor of the defense. Now, the defense has not gotten a lot of favorable rulings in this trial, but they got one. They got, hey, you got to win. He said he was ruling based on 403, which is a rule of evidence that says if the evidence is more prejudicial than probative, then it should not come in. And he ruled that for the prosecution to get into this roadside shooting has nothing to do with motive. It happened after the murders, would be a bridge too far. That's a quote. It's a bridge too far. So we're not going there. So he ruled it's not coming in. So all the jury knows is that the sister and her husband were driving to a football game and they got a call that Alex had been shot. That's all they know. Yeah. They're going to find out more because later on during the cross-examination of the lead investigator, Jim Griffin with the defense started asking some questions. And one of the questions he asked was whether this investigator had learned during the investigation that Alex had been paying $50,000 a week to Curtis Eddie Smith for drugs. And that, $50,000 a week for drugs. Holy crap, that's a lot of drugs. Yeah, holy moly. Then he asked, well, did you learn that Curtis Eddie Smith was getting these drugs from a gang and that he owed money to this gang? Yeah. And then another question was, did you investigate to see where these gang members were on June 7th? And what the officer said is what they had done for June 7th was they pulled all the cell tower records for cell phones. And when that happens, you get a whole list of phone numbers. And all those phone numbers came back to pretty much all of the EMS and first responders and investigators that were on the scene, and Alex, and like nothing that belonged to any gang member. Then he was asked, did you collect any DNA samples from these gang members? And he said no. So, dun dun dun, that opened the door. Curtis Eddie Smith is the guy that is now sitting in jail for this botched alleged suicide plot. He was the shooter that Alex Murdaugh hired to kill him on the side of the road so that his son could get a $10 million life insurance policy. His son, Buster. But what actually happened was when Eddie showed up, there was a struggle over the gun and it went off, and it just was just a fiasco. And, you know, the defense attorney keeps making it sound like it was way worse than it was. That, oh, he had, you know, he was shot in the head and he had a concussion and he had a skull fracture and he had a brain bleed. No. He was in and out of that hospital like the same day. I don't even think he stayed overnight. No. Probably a concussion. Yeah, I could go with that. But in any case, so the judge said, I am reversing myself. I'm reversing. You open the door. It's coming in. So I guess they asked the jury to come in later on today, same as they did the day before, to give the prosecution and the defense a chance to give the judge briefs on why this should come in, why it shouldn't come in. Did we open the door? Did we not open the door? And so when the judge started this morning, he ruled, listen, I've read all your memos, I've heard your arguments, and you've made your record, but, when I ruled, I said this was a bridge too far, and the defense decided, in their infinite wisdom, to build a road over the bridge. And you opened the door, and now we're going to hear... And he said, for the sake of completeness, the jury now needs to know what the heck you're talking about, you know. You open the door, you ask these questions about Curtis Eddie Smith. Now the big question is Curtis Eddie Smith going to testify? That should be very interesting because he's sitting in prison for this botched suicide thing. It's one of the 99 charges that Alex has as well, outside of these murder charges. So... it's coming in. So now they're trying to work together, the prosecution and the defense, to get this information in as quickly as they can. But it's not playing out the way they had hoped, you know, that the prosecution would be resting today. I don't think that's going to happen because now we're going to hear all about this other incident. Oh my God. So the other thing that the prosecution did, or the defense did for the lead investigator on cross-examination, was really poke some holes in this investigation. And they have managed, and they've done a really good job of making this look like a botched investigation. You know, you didn't go till Alameda where, you know, Miss Libby, his mother, lived, and searched that home for months. This happened in June. And her house wasn't searched until September. The other thing was, did you ever ask Alex for the clothes he was wearing in that Snapchat video? No, didn't happen. Why not? Okay, so backtracking earlier in the day, the lead investigator, through this lead investigator, we are shown the third interview of Alex Murdaugh. He had called the investigator and said, you know, I just want to know how things are going. And he says, I have some questions. And the investigator is like, oh, well, I have some questions for you too. Why don't we arrange for a meeting? So they arrange for a meeting at the police department building, wherever this sled is located, in some old building that used to be a mental health facility. So they had and it was a regular interview type room with the table and the chairs and the video camera. And So Alex brought his friend Corey Fleming. Corey Fleming, as you might recall, was the attorney he referred Gloria Satterfield's sons to represent them in a case against Alex for negligence when his dogs allegedly swept Gloria Satterfield's feet from out from under her, and she hit her head and she died 3 weeks later. Corey Fleming was actually the attorney. Now, the Satterfield boys thought their attorney was Alex Murdoch, but it was actually Corey Fleming, Alex's good friend, who happens to come with him for the interview. And he starts out like right out of the ballpark saying, is this an interview? Is this is he being interviewed as a suspect, or are you here to answer our questions? And the judge, the investigator said, no, it's a little bit of both. I have some questions, and yes, I'll be able. So Corey says, well, why don't you answer our questions first? And the investigator says, no, I'm going to ask my questions first. When I'm done questioning him, then if you still have questions, you can ask them. So he basically shut Corey Fleming down. Like, sit down, boy. And meanwhile, Alex is like, I don't have any problem with it. I'm okay. But his body language during this interview, he's got his hands in his lap. And one of the things the body language experts had said is when a person is, especially a man or a woman, is doing this and covering their genitals, they're like in self-defense mode. So at one point, very soon into the interview, he's crying and he's rocking back and forth. It was so weird. And his face is all red. I didn't see any tears, but he did ask for a tissue at one point. So, and then later on in the interview, he's got his legs crossed and his arms like this. Very defensive posture, very defensive. I'm not an expert, but I know from interview techniques, you don't go into an interview and do this. You relax. You don't cross your legs. Okay. So some of the things that came out during this interview was he claimed that he had been in his mother's house for 45 minutes to an hour. We now know that that's not true. He was there 20 minutes. He did say it would be highly unusual if Paul had walked down to the kennels. He would have taken his truck, one of the trucks. There's so many trucks I can't even keep track of, the trucks and the guns. And that he probably would have encouraged Maggie to ride with him. So, and apparently this was a replacement truck because the week before, Paul was having trouble with his usual white truck, so he was using a black truck. So I don't know. The question is, did the guns that were usually in Paul's truck get transferred to the black truck and then driven out to the kennels? Because there was a black truck out at the kennels. So no one knows. But Alex confirmed that, based on their inventory of the guns, 3 of the guns were missing. Now, here's something very interesting. I'm not sure I knew this, but what they did was they tested the shell casings that were found around Maggie's body and the ones found around Paul, and they matched those up to ones that came from the place where they would do target shooting with their family guns. And they matched. So what he says to Alex is, we know that Maggie and Paul were killed with the family guns. We just don't know where those guns are. Now, I think the 12 gauge was in the feed room, but the 300 blackout missing. And I guess there's 2 other guns missing. The other thing I didn't realize was there was 2 different kinds of casings. The buckshot and some other shot, bird shot and buckshot, I don't know, mixed in with all. And Alex did say that was not unusual to put two different kinds of shots into the same weapon. And yeah, I don't know. And the 300 blackout that Alex went and got that night also had two kinds of shots in the weapon. Okay, so now the investigator says, now you can ask your questions. He's done, he finished doing the interview. So one of the questions Corey had was, have you found any forensics that would lead you to a suspect? And he's like, no, the only, we've got everyone's DNA. The only DNA out there were Maggie's, Paul's, Alex, and other, other people that they've already identified. No suspects. He says, but we're still waiting for cell phone records and the records from this infotainment center that was in the Chevy Suburban that Alex was driving. So the next question they had was, did any of them, Alex asked us, did any of them live for any length of time? And the investigator said, if they did, it was not very long. And then Corey chimes in and he says, oh no, this was Alex again. Alex said, well, do you know if it was one person, two persons, three persons? And the guy says, we have no idea. We just don't know. And then he says, so neither one of them suffered anything? And he says, it would have only been seconds. So, yeah, weird questions. And this was the first time Alex had ever asked any of these questions of this investigator. And we're, way far removed from the murders now. But this is the first time he's checking in to see what's the status of everything. I don't know, it's very weird. Okay. So this morning, I guess they're going to go right into the roadside shooting. Now, we know that as of this morning, Curtis Eddie Smith was still in prison. He has not been relocated to a local prison so he can testify. I don't know if that's going to, because that logistically takes, you have to file paperwork and do all that. But so I don't know if that's going to happen tomorrow. I'm assuming tomorrow we're going to have to take a witness out of order for the defense because they've already paid for his flight for this expert to come in and testify. So that will happen tomorrow. And then, maybe they're going to bring in Curtis Eddie Smith on Monday. I don't think that the defense is as naive as we think. I think they may have opened this door on purpose. Did they want this evidence to come in? Do they want the jury to think there's another suspect? They probably don't want the jury to know that Alex paid him to kill him. I don't know. I just don't know how this is going to play out in front of the jury. So another question that I thought, or a thought that I had was, the investigator said we've identified that that Maggie and Paul were killed with family weapons. Now, if it wasn't Alex, it was some other gang member or something, wouldn't they bring their own guns? Why would they come and then go in Moselle and steal guns or go in the trucks and take the guns? And then, that makes no sense. If you're going to go kill somebody, you're going to bring a weapon, aren't you? So more and more, I'm starting to be convinced that it was Alex. How he pulled it off with two different weapons, I have no idea. I don't know. But the evidence is starting to really stack up against him. It really is. It is not looking good. He spends a lot of time sitting there at the defense table crying, boo-hooing, face all red, and oh, yeah. So that's where we are with the trial. Okay, let's do the calendar. The crime calendar. Here we go. So we're talking about the legend of Lavinia Fisher. thought to be the first woman serial killer in this country. So Lavinia's murderous legacy is based on reports that her guests went missing. She and her husband owned this inn that was called the 6 Mile House. Over time, rumors grew elaborate. Some said Lavinia lured men to the 6 Mile House and gently questioned them about their occupations to determine whether they might have money with them. She then sent the men to their rooms with drugged cups of tea, and John would follow after them to finish the job. The more fantastical version of the story involves Lavinia pulling a lever that collapsed the beds as the men drifted off into an induced slumber, plunging them into a pit of snakes where they perished. Oh no, that can't be. That's ridiculous. Oh God, clearly that's a rumor. Can you imagine? You're falling asleep and all of a sudden your bed just falls into a pit of snakes. No, I'm sorry. This is funny. Lavinia's scheme was supposedly found out by a guest named John Peebles, who tossed his tea and slept in a chair by the door of his room after growing suspicious of the inquisitive Lavinia. A loud crash woke him in the night, the sound of the bed collapsing, exposing the spiked pit below. Oh, now it's a spiked pit. Peebles jumped out the window and alerted the authorities, who would soon come for John and Lavinia. So, okay. Part 3 tomorrow. I love this calendar. I really do. And the back is blank, so I keep some notes on here sometimes. Okay. That was, oh God, that was funny. Okay. I'm so excited because this weekend is the 24 hours of cross stitch weekend. This is it's something that I do once a month with some friends of mine, and we get together and we cross stitch, and we try to get in 24 hours over a 48-hour period of time from Friday night to Sunday night, and we keep track of our time. The best I've ever done is 14 hours because I got things to do. You know, I go to play my Minecraft, and now I'm reading a book, and a steamy novel. Yes, yeah, Neenockin and the whole thing. So, yeah, but that's what I'm doing this weekend. So we're starting the White Santa. I've shown that previously, but anyway, I'll show it to you tomorrow because I'm going to be working on it. Well, I'm going to start. Okay, love you all. Have a great day. Short show today. I love you all. I got to get to watch the trial. It's going to be so interesting. Take care, everybody. Bye.